Titles in One Piece carry weight. They mean something. They shape how characters are perceived in the world and to us, the readers. King of the Pirates, strongest man in the world, world's strongest swordsman. All titles that are clear, we understand them. They mean something. Each of these titles will represent status, legacy, reputation, but they all come with a little bit of nuance. Today's main focus is Dracula Mihawk, the world's strongest swordsman, and what his title means to my client, Red Hair Shanks. To be clear, I don't want to hear all the Mihawk glazers coming at me crazily. I am not saying that Mihawk's title is fake or invalid, or that Shanks is definitely 1000% stronger than Mihawk. Okay, let's start that right here. The purpose is simple. If Shanks is revealed to be stronger than Mihawk in the future of the story, that does not mean that it would undermine the consistency of Mihawk's title, his strength, or create a problem with the narrative. It does not mean to retcon anything. First, we need to understand how titles function. A title like the world's strongest swordsman means Mihawk is recognized as the strongest swordsman and he holds that position until someone else takes that title from him. But that doesn't mean that in every possible scenario against another swordsman that Mihawk would win no matter what. I try to use real world comparisons when I make these arguments. So I would like to bring up the UFC. In the UFC, Jon Jones, possibly considered the GOAT of all the UFC, held the heavyweight title a couple years ago. He was officially the heavyweight champion, the best heavyweight in the UFC. Potentially the world, considering, which one. It doesn't matter. Tom Aspinall, though, another great heavyweight, many considered was better than Jon Jones. But in that case, no one was saying Tom Aspinall, though I think he's better than Jon Jones, that means Jon Jones' title. No, that can't be possible. Tom Aspinall can't be better than Jon Jones, because that means Jon Jones' title is not valid. That doesn't make any sense. Jon Jones going into the fight, he could be the favorite. He cannot be the favorite. But that doesn't mean he's not the champion if people think he's not the favorite. This same logic applies to Dracula Mihawk. The world treats him as the strongest swordsman, and rightfully so. But that doesn't automatically mean he would defeat every swordsman he would come across. Especially when we talk about characters like Shanks. We know Shanks and Mihawks dueled a lot in the past, and there is no confirmed winner. There is no page where you can find, or no statement that you can tell me that shows me Mihawk defeated Shanks, or vice versa. So because of that, that alone tells us Mihawk did not gain his title of World's Strongest Swordsman by defeating Shanks. On top of all of that, their last known duel, and really the last duel that we know for sure they had, was over a decade ago, 12 years before the start of the story. Since then, both characters have gained tremendous amounts of power. Shanks in particular, he became a Yonko. He went from, recently in the Elbaf arc we saw in the flashback, Shanks and Gabon weren't able to fight Harold at all. They were getting washed. Then Loki was able to beat Harold. Years later, 6 years, no, that flashback was 14 years before the story. 6 years before the story, Shanks defeats Loki, brings him back to Elbaf, and becomes a Yonko all in that same year. Now, we don't know if the reason he became a Yonko is because he stopped the Loki and took him off the seas, or something else happened. But regardless, that's how he became a Yonko. And I know there's going to be a lot of people, blah, 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 Loki, we don't know how Loki actually, blah, blah. But it doesn't matter, all right? It doesn't matter. Right now, we was been told Shanks beat Loki, okay? If their original fights lasted with no clear victor, and they both have gained strength, gotten stronger, how are we supposed to know for sure that Shanks would still lose to Mihawk, or vice versa? Now I'm going to lead into some counter arguments that I've, heard from the world, I guess. If Shanks is stronger than Mihawk, would that invalidate Zoro's dreams? And I would definitely say no. Zoro's goal is to become the world's strongest swordsman, and defeating the world's strongest swordsman, who is Mihawk. If Zoro, becomes the world's strongest swordsman, it's not his prerogative to go and challenge Shanks for that title. He's already beaten the world's strongest swordsman. Just like in the UFC. If another fighter were to beat Jon Jones, he doesn't now also have to beat Tom Aspinall to be considered the UFC rightful UFC heavyweight champion. That's not how that works. If Shanks truly wanted to be the world's strongest swordsman and prove that he was the world's strongest swordsman, he would challenge Mihawk directly. Another argument that people have shown, Mihawk having a black blade. Now, we don't know how black blades are created. It's been very vague so far. There's been statements about Ryuma and how he forged his through histories of battles. But there's also characters like Roger, Rox, and Whitebeard who have histories of battles and don't have black blades. And to assume that it's only because Mihawk and Ryuma's haki must be stronger than theirs is the reason to why they have black blades and they don't is crazy, because we don't know how they're made. We don't know how they're made. It's all theory at this point. I can't take that statement and assuming that, oh, just Mihawk is just stronger than them, especially since a lot of people think it's conqueror's coating and that's how black blades are made, when we don't even know if Mihawk's a conqueror. We also don't know if Ryuma's a conqueror. And I made a TikTok about that, but besides that, we don't know how black blades are made, so I can't assume it's a strength feat. Also, there's a comment about Mihawk calling Shanks a one-armed has-been all the way back in East Blue. Now, this is obviously just trash talk between the two. Shanks literally says he can still take him right after that. So if you're going to say that, then I'll just say, oh, Shanks can still definitely beat him. He just said so. And then also in Marineford, Mihawk considered Shanks, he alluded to Shanks being stronger than Whitebeard. He said, I agreed to fight Whitebeard, not Shanks. And he left. And he also advised that the Marines should also not fight him. So what does all I'm saying mean? I'm saying that Mihawk is the world's strongest swordsman. His title should be respected, but it's not an absolute. There's no reason to where you can guarantee a victor of a fight because of a title that has nuance towards it. Shanks has a weird role in the strongest swordsman conversation because yes, he is a swordsman. Yes, that would make him default be weaker than Mihawk. But we also know through context of the story that that's not the case. We don't have the world government going around checking whose sword slashes is the strongest every year like it's a yearly thing. We don't have that. We don't have the luxury of seeing a Mihawk versus Shanks fight to know who's really stronger. We also know the world's strongest swordsman title is, again, transferred through a duel, and these two haven't dueled in over a decade. So because of this, because of the growth, because of the never stated who won, and we know Mihawk didn't gain his title from beating Shanks, there's no way you can say, oh, because Mihawk is the world's strongest swordsman, he will 100% beat Shanks every time. And if that was the case, why would Zoro ever challenge Mihawk for the title if Mihawk is always going to win against a swordsman? That's not how that works. But that's the key point, though. Because Shanks has never challenged Mihawk, we don't know who the winner is. And I'm going to default to Mihawk being the stronger of the two. But that doesn't mean that there's a huge gap. There's a huge void between the two. There has never, ever been stated that there is a huge gap between the two. Also wanted to mention the panel where Mihawk is getting his bounty. We see his bounty of 3.5 billion or whatever. And the Marines are saying, oh, he's stronger than Shanks. Yeah, he's even, as strong or more powerful than the Emperor Shanks. He has better sword skills than him. That would make sense because it goes along to the UFC analogy I said. John Jones, as the heavyweight champion, he is considered the best 205, or yeah, was it light? I'm not sure if it's light heavyweight. I'm not sure the semantics right now, but he is considered the strongest, the best 220 fighter in the UFC, and he will be respected with that as much. People will even mention the panel where we get to see Mihawk's 3.5 billion berry bounty revealed and the additional information underwards, which I'm not specifically sure what it says, but I know it mentions him being stronger than Shanks. And of course, the newspaper and the Marines would glaze him to that certain, degree. Mihawk is considered the world's strongest swordsman. So every swordsman should be considered under him. And that's the default. If Mihawk is the betting favorite, of course he's going to be considered stronger than Shanks. I agree with that. I said Mihawk should be respected with that title. Oh yes, my client does fall under the term swordsman, and he isn't the strongest swordsman in the world, but he has tons and tons of story that is giving nuance to the title. He has tons of evidence showing that he might not be weaker than this individual. Now, Your Honor, do you agree? I'm not sure. Let me know in the comments. Until next time, I'm Hidden Ace. Uh, Follow me on TikTok, Twitch. I have a TikTok, Ace of Seraphim. I talk a lot of there. But yeah, so I love One Piece. I like talking about it. I like bringing it all. I'm gonna make more of these videos soon. But yeah. Until next time, bro. I'm gonna see y'all. I might make a video about somebody else. So maybe some more different anime. But until next time, I'm gonna see y'all. Peace.